understand.
Just been living. You know, it's really hard to find decent people to speak to, like legitimately.
I actually agree with that.
I guess to be honest with you, the very first interaction we've ever had was on that panel, the Stardust panel. Were you aware of me before then at all?
Actually, we've had a few interactions before, mostly on Prime's panels.
Mm.
And
Was
they
it
were like late night.
okay? Was there a time outside of a Primes panel?
No,
Okay, yeah. So look, here. I'm gonna be 100% real with you. I don't like panels. I'm not a big fan of them. And I think the reason is because I think there's almost never any time to fully get out an actual thought, and it ends up
that's
being
fair.
a dunk fest of nonsense and people just trying their best to take you out of context and interrupt you. And so then I just turn into a different person on panels. But more often than not, I like to have what I prefer is actual conversations, because I think in those cases you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm not going to be able to get back and forth verify. The next 8 people are going to speak on this misinterpretation of straw man nonsense. So yeah, you're allowed to actually have
Yeah,
a conversation.
I get it. I get it. Yeah, no, especially the more people on a panel, the more like crazy it is, and then it's usually like really lopsided on um like the views. So there's always just like more people on one side than there is on both sides, and that always ends up messy anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to get a decent balance because you end up getting like a bunch of people who are either like in the middle and don't really care about the subject, or you have too many people on one side and like one person on, the opposite side.
Right.
So
So on that panel, we were talking, and I felt like you really, really, I guess it seemed like you were kind of taken aback by some of the things that I was saying, and obviously because it was a panel, we just weren't really going to get into it. Do you remember any of the things that like really were appalling or egregious in your opinion, or any?
I mean, I think the most thrown back that I was I think if I remember correctly, the irrelevant situation.
Mm.
I believe it was, when you were discussing whether or not he was black or not.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Where I said he was like a quarter white.
Right.
Yeah, um, sorry. All right. Look, so I did a whole video on this, okay? Because I
Mhm.
was unaware of it at one point, and I started like doing a bunch of research and all these kinds of things. It helped me really come to some very serious conclusions. Um, Number one, it's that there for a very long time in this country, and not that long ago, there was no distinction between any colored and white. I mean, between I'm sorry, between the distinction was colored and white, and colored meant people of Negro descent. I mean to
So
say.
you're saying like it didn't mean like Hispanic or like Puerto Rican or something like that. It meant black.
Right. In fact, to be real with you, the word Hispanic didn't even exist. The word Hispanic only got created in, I want to say, 1968. Um uh and the very first time it ever appeared in any like legal government anything was in 1970. And the reason for that was because um so for the very first time we were doing like civil rights marches in like 64 and all of that, right? Or 63 and 64 and all of this stuff, and we're starting to get this civil rights legislation passed. And so then in 1968 there were questions of about affirmative action and extra funding going to black people. And so then the question became, well, Hispanic people up to this point were feeling like, well, wait a minute. Okay, if you guys are going to get funding and stuff, then how do we get counted in that? How are we going to
Right.
be distinguished? But prior to that, during the 1963 and 64, during all of these things, Hispanics from, I mean, their largest groups were all saying, we're not civil rights organizations. We don't like civil rights organizations. Um, have you ever heard of the phrase LULAC, LULAC?
Nope.
All right, peep this. Let me find it really quick because I don't want to. Okay, it's it's the League of United Latin American Citizens. Okay,
Okay.
And what's really interesting is right now, if you just look on the Wikipedia page, it'll say the League of United Latin American Citizens is the largest and oldest Hispanic and Latin American civil rights organization in the United States. Okay.
Mhm.
But the president of that organization in 1964, you're not a civil rights organization. Frankly, I hate that term because they didn't like the idea of a civil of being associated with the Black civil rights organization. In fact, the
Okay.
president of that organization specifically said, "The Negro, let him fight his own battles. Why would I want to ally?" And the list just goes on and on and on. All of the different things that they were saying. So for me, having learned that history, and it would be one thing if that history was, oh, this is just something way off in the past or something like that. First off, the Civil Rights Act wasn't that long ago, 64. I mean, my mother was alive.
Yeah.
She was already 10 years old by that one, 14 years old when the
Mhm.
Fair Housing Act passed. But it's just for them to have done that and then to maintain it. It would be I think if it was like we have only done it back then, but to this day, the vast majority of Latin American people put white on their census and do not want to associate with anti-blackness is complete throughout the entire Latin American communities.
Okay.
So
All
with
right.
go ahead, go ahead.
Well, so it's not so much I guess the way or what you're saying then. It's just more so the uh way you kind of deliver it.
Okay, what do you mean?
Um well, I mean, maybe in situations like that where you don't have time to discuss it, maybe throwing out "you're not black" is it's necessarily the best thing to do.
I didn't say he
Um
wasn't black. I said
you
he was half
totally did.
white. No, I said he was half white. And then afterwards, then he said, "No, I'm not a half white. I'm so and so." So I said, "Okay, so you're quarter white." That's what I said.
Okay. Uh
Is that not
yeah.
accurate?
That I mean that might be accurate. I might be remembering it wrong for sure. Yeah, I just that was definitely one thing. But no, you definitely opened my eyes to like more understand what you meant.
Yeah, let me hold on just so that you can see that I'm not blowing smoke, okay? Because it's too easy for me to just say all this, um, and it come off like I'm, I mean, yeah, it's easy for me to say everything and then none of it actually be
Yeah,
accurate.
right. I same with me.
Yeah, so I feel like I should find you some of these things, okay? Um, just if you give me like 30 seconds. I didn't really
You're fine.
prepare,
I'm
but it
not in a
shouldn't take
rush.
long. Okay, that's great.
I'm gonna take a hit real quick.
Okay, hit. Are you smoking?
Yeah.
Oh, with your bad self. Okay. Um. Uh. Here's a. Let me find this YouTube video. Okay. Okay. Look, I'm gonna I'm gonna stream this to you. Okay.
Okay.
Share your screen. I normally make a really inappropriate joke here, but we're not gonna do that today. All right, we're gonna go ahead and just watch this small little video. Okay. Look at this right here.
Anything to do with any until he came here. I mean, they never lived, well, what you'd say, close enough to us, or we just never around them, really.
Isn't that part of what makes it difficult when you live 15 or 17 years of your life and then start doing something different all of a sudden?
Well, I think, like if a Spanish or a Chinese person came here, it wouldn't be hard to get along with them. It's just that the Negroes are what you might say more different to us than a Spanish person might be.
All right.
Hmm.
You see that? That
Okay.
that wasn't like it wasn't an uncommon thought process. That I mean, it was like literally everywhere.
Okay.
Um, uh, Check this out. I'm just read this small little article. Mexican American civics groups fought to eliminate segregated Mexican schools on the basis that Mexican original pupils were white. They made little mention of the segregation of African Americans in black schools. When the Supreme Court handed down the Brown versus Board decision, Mexican American civics groups barely took notice. And when the state legislature began passing laws to prolong segregation, the most prominent Mexican American organization sided with the state government and not African Americans. For example, some in LULAC debated the idea of joining forces with the NAACP defeat the flood of racist bills coming from the legislature in 1957. League President Tijerina dismissed this idea. Similarly, LULAC's legal advisor Phil Montalvo explained to Tijerina, a stand taken by you on such bills would tend to admit to our Anglo-American friends that we consider ourselves as separate and apart from the majority of American citizens. Montalvo reminded us once again that as whites, Anglos were the Mexican-American allies. Numerous LULACers and Mexican-American more generally agreed with this stance. For instance, A.G. Ramirez stated succinctly, my district does not want our people and our beloved LULAC to be affiliated with the Negroes. We are white. Similarly, Dallas newsman Pedro Ochoa berated anyone wishing black-brown unity, explaining that many Mexican Americans do not accept the integrationist precept at public schools and perhaps churches and housing projects. Ochoa also warned Mexican Americans to preserve your white race, vote against integration, don't look to a black future. See what I'm saying? Like, I mean, this stuff was everywhere. Um, uh, so to me, when someone so when I say, oh, when someone tries to tell me, like, we can at this point now they're trying to whitewash history and say, they've sided with us from the very beginning. When we had the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, organizing large-scale marches and things like that, and boycotts and sit-ins and all of these things, and you have this organization, the oldest civil rights organization, as they want to be called civil rights organization now, when you have them saying things like, hey, nah, we're not associating with those people. No, we're not those. Like, hey, nah, matter of fact, I hate the term. And then they're writing letters to them, bashing the march, saying that they're uppity, saying that they're demanding too much, all of these kinds of things, decrying these marches. It's like, wait a minute, you don't get to do all of those things and now retroactively say, wait, we're a little bit different. And I mean, again, the word Hispanic was created specifically because of that civil rights success. Because prior to that, they were saying, hey, no, we're the same group as our oppressors. It was crazy.
Yeah, I actually never knew that. So
Yeah, I think most people don't. And so to be honest with you, it's a bit of a gotcha, or what are you, like an edgelord moment for me. Anytime like I find like a Asian or Hispanic person, I'm like, oh yeah, you're white. Because I know the way we're colored in today, where we all hear the phrase "people of color," that's everything, right? Everyone says "people of color, people of color, people of color." Like all Democrats, that's the
right.
phrase. But people of color is a whitewashing of this clearly distinct history, because there was no people of color. It was colored people, and colored people meant of Negro descent. Now you have Asians who are like, no, we're colored, and Hispanics who are like, no, we're colored. But prior to that, when we had like Plessy versus Ferguson, remember when it was separate but equal and that was perfectly legal? During that time, black people couldn't use the cars of the white people. Hispanic people, they used the cars. Chinese people got to use those cars. We were black people segregated. Whites, Hispanics, and Asians were perfectly fine, and even Native Americans were perfectly fine to use those cars. They took black people, some black people, I don't know if you know this, like during the Great Migration and stuff, we like fled to Mexico, right?
Right.
Those ones came back and they would be traveling between Mexico and the United States. And when they would go in certain places in the United States, they would just speak Spanish. And because they spoke Spanish, they were allowed to sit at the restaurant. They assumed that they were Mexican. Didn't matter your skin color, didn't matter any of that. Just speaking Spanish. That was the way to guarantee, okay, I'm not going to be segregated again. Because they had no problem with Mexicans. They didn't have problems with Asians. They only had problems with black people in this country. So then now it really bothers me when you have everyone trying to say, no, we're all people of color. We're all under the same umbrella. When it's like, no, you weren't. You were antagonistic towards our success. So yes, you were a quarter white. That is what you are, is a quarter white. On your census, they write white. So then, yeah, no, don't sit there and try to tell me, oh, no, I'm just as black as you. No, you're not. You don't believe that. You haven't had the same punishments or any of those things. I'm sorry, I've gone on a bit, but that's just the facts.
So, I mean, you don't think that like maybe you don't think that he like writes down that he's black on those specific things?
Oh, he is, because yes, he's half black. So then for him, yeah, he is half black.
Well, 3/4.
Wasn't it? No. He's half.
Yeah, his mom. No, because his mom is half Hispanic and half black.
No, he said his mom was half Hispanic, half Native
No,
American.
his. I'm sorry. Yeah, his grandmother is Native American. His grandfather was black. His mom his mom is half Native American and he is a quarter American.
Right. So if his mom is half Native American, that makes him a quarter Native American. But then his mom's other half is Hispanic, which makes him a quarter Hispanic, and his dad was black.
Damn, I'm just like
Am I not?
remembering this completely. No, look, I have a bad memory, so like I have seizures, so it possibly that I'm just not remembering that night clearly.
Hmm. Dang, I'm sorry. And look, here's the
So
deal. It's possible. It is very possible that I'm wrong, but I thought that was the case, but it's possible I'm wrong, but I genuinely do believe that that's what he said that night. I could be wrong though. I'm not going
that's
to die on
fine.
that hill.
I'm probably gonna have to go through it anyways to edit my side, so I'll figure it out either way. But
100%. And
yeah.
look, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Yeah, because I don't get along with Irrelevant, so like again, I
Oh,
do say edgy
I
stuff.
didn't know you guys had previous interactions with each other.
Oh yeah, they've all been absurd. That dude's not smart. But he
Oh,
has
jeez.
no, I'm sorry. I just how I feel. But he just has this tendency to he wants to overtalk you a lot, and he likes to interrupt you because he doesn't want you to ever get a clear thought out. Some people, when they get into conversations, their whole goal is to take whatever you say out of context and parrot it to their audience. Oh, so you think this, right? And then before you can even fully explain, it's like, no. So you do think this, and they're just constantly trying their best to label you, straw man you, push you into a position that you don't even agree with, so that way that they can win the argument, right? Like that's their goal. And it's not even
Right.
about to try to contend with the ideas. It's about how do I make you out to be the monster. And if like for example you're right leaning, it's like, oh, so you're a Republican, or you're a MAGA guy. If you say anything that could like slightly be that, or oh, so you're anti-Semitic, or oh, so you whatever it is, it's just how do I find a way of quickly demonizing you so that you're the bad guy. And Irrelevant is like one of the worst actors within that in that way. And so whenever I interact with him, I'm always just having a good time, being silly. But one of the times I went into a stream and I asked him, "Hey, what's your ethnicity?" And he just said, "I'm black." And I was like, "Oh, interesting. Okay, I wouldn't have guessed that." Like he was just like, uh, and I was like, "You're fully black?" And he was like, "Well, I mean, I have such and such, and so I'm mixed with." He wouldn't specify. He just said, "Yeah, like, I have some other stuff there too, but yeah, I'm black." I'm like, "Oh, that's well, then why wouldn't you say that? Why would you just say
Okay.
black?" And then at that point, he was just like, "Oh, so you're saying I'm not black?" And it's like, "No, I didn't say you're not black. I'm saying you're mixed. Why didn't you
Okay.
include the other parts?" And then he just refused, and he was shutting down and being like a douchebag about it. And so to this day, I literally didn't know for sure what he was. So then that's why
Mm,
I just did what I
I get it. Some people just don't get along.
did. Yeah.
Some people just don't mesh especially on panels, because it's meant to antagonize.
Yep.
Unfortunately, especially in this
100%.
community.
Yep.
It was never meant. Debates normally are not meant to antagonize. They're just meant to get points across and to try to persuade the other half. But it gets personal on some of these. So
Yeah. To be honest, I used to do a panel. I might bring it back soon. Where there was none. I didn't allow any. It was still conversations, and still the ideas would be preeminent, and it wouldn't be dunking and all the other nonsense.
right.
I
Yeah,
really enjoyed that.
I run a panel once a month. It's like that.
You should invite me. I'm actually pretty decent on a decent panel, but I don't know if people
Sounds
start
good.
being douchebags.
Yeah, no, I usually make sure that it's pretty controlled, and I'm a decent moderator if I say so myself. I don't let shit fly that isn't necessary. But
Can I read one more
yeah,
thing
no.
to you?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Peep this out. LULAC and the GI Forum. GI Forum is also another Hispanic now civil rights organization. Very much not at the time. Uh, The LULAC and GI Forum leaders found widespread support for their racial ideas. One vocal supporter who engaged in his own form of racism and white supremacy was Pedro Ochoa of Dallas. Ochoa, an auto parts salesman who wrote under the pseudonym Pedro El Gringo, published the widely read Dallas Americano. His viewpoint provided insight into the working class Mexican American political and racial thought. Like some other Mexican leaders, he vehemently opposed any form of unity with blacks and actively promoted whiteness. Pedro Ochoa vocalized a racism that reflected the dominant view of Southern society. He frequently peppered his columns with racial slurs, nigerianos, nigerifos, nigerote, or simply nigger. He also called those wishing black Mexican unity pro negreras and claimed that integration is solely for the aggrandizement of the black race. Similarly, Ochoa believed that integration would lead to the loss of Mexican American business. The integrationist is our worst enemy, he wrote, and they intend to implant integration by force. He referred to integrationists as brota la paga, or a plague, and reminded his readers that all people who speak Spanish are classified as white people. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Bro, it's
historical.
It's very historical.
So that's why you say it. I understand. Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, and the last thing is the point that I bring up that really, really sends this home is when it came to like integrating schools. So Hispanics went to the same schools as white people, but then suddenly in California, they started segregating Hispanic people and sending them to specific Spanish speaking schools if they didn't speak English.
Okay.
And there were some kids that were like to ESL schools, and so there were some people that were like kind of offended, like, wait, no, we're white people, send us to the white schools. And so they ended up taking this to the Supreme Court. They ended up like fighting against the segregation, but their segregation that they fought was not on the basis that segregation was wrong, like Brown versus Board of Education. Their segregation was on the basis that they were white. So then they were saying, you can't send us to separate schools because we're white people and it's wrong to segregate against us. And of course, the NAACP supported them, thinking, hey, this will overturn, Plessy versus Ferguson and things like that. And so they got support from Jewish organizations and NAACP and all these other organizations that were all like, hey, this would be the doing. And instead, when it got up to like the 13th ring of the Supreme Court, of the appeals court, whatever, it said they restricted it. It said, okay, you cannot discriminate against Hispanics and Asians. That's where it ended. It did not apply to black people. So then from that point on, California could not discriminate. The next year is when California, because the California Supreme Court would hold that way. The next year, the governor like made it law that you cannot discriminate against Hispanics and Asians. Now, think about what that means to literally specify Asians and Hispanics can't be discriminated against, but leaving it completely fine for black
these
folks.
people. Yeah.
Right. And so then it's like what you do when you're in those kinds of cases with those appeals, once you get an appeal, you don't have to accept that appeal. You keep running it up the ladder. But they stopped at that moment because that was success for them. Whereas every time black people have ever fought for any civil rights legislation or anything, it's never been specifically for black people. It's always been, wait a minute, if there's any discrimination against any other people, going. So when it came to these Hispanic, for them, once they got that ruling and they knew it was narrowly constricted, they stopped there. Now they could have continued to run that up the ladder to try to broaden it to make sure that you can't discriminate. Fine, but for them, they were in favor of anti-black discrimination. They just didn't care. So then at that point, that's where they stopped it. And I think so. When we begin marching and doing all of these things, when we've received the brunt of the discrimination and all of the nonsense, and then we continue to fight for all these other people, and you have all these immigrants and people who are coming based off of civil rights legislation that we fought for in 1964, and the things that allowed all of these random immigrant groups to start coming to the country, and then for them to come with all of these anti-black sentiments, it's really, really, really. And again, I know that almost no white liberals talk about this. This isn't common discourse. So anytime I start talking and I start saying things like Hispanics, I know everyone's going to look at me like I'm crazy, because if you've been inculcated with the values that, oh, that we're all people of color, we're all people of color, then it doesn't make any sense when someone's pointing out to you, no. We weren't all people of color. We're not all people of color now, because in reality, you guys still consider Hispanic to be white. It's just that anytime that there's any benefits associated with anything aimed at colored people, which would have been black people, you guys wanted a piece of that pie, but you never wanted a piece of the struggle. You never wanted a piece of any of the things that were necessary in order to obtain these things. You just want the benefits.
Okay, I understand. I understand the anger from it.
Yep. And as far as the Jewish stuff, look, I'm gonna just keep it a buck, okay? I didn't know anything about like I found out that I was gonna be on that panel the day before, okay? The day before. I don't like panels, and Sunday is my work day, okay? So I play the piano for multiple churches, and from the time from 9 o'clock, I get a small break, and then 1:30, I end up getting I get like a 45-minute break. So I get an hour and a half break, and then I get a 45-minute break, and I'm just playing full time. Okay.
Okay.
And so the panel started at 5. I couldn't even be there at the panel because I was at work, right? Like I was still playing.
Right.
And so I rushed home, and I got home, and then it was like, okay, we're gonna go live on the panel. So I didn't have the facts and the details, right? And so it's like I can understand like why it was like because I'm like, hey, isn't so and so Jewish? And it's like, no, it's not. They're Jewish. Oh, his wife is Jewish. It's like, okay, my bad. Isn't so and so Jewish? It's like, no, this person isn't Jewish. But and it's like, okay, I did not have that information offhand, and I think I said repeatedly, like, I'm not
Yeah,
100% sure.
yeah, no,
but I
you did.
think right, and stuff like that. So that's where that misinformation came from. I am genuinely not an anti-Semitic person because I mean I don't know enough about Jewish history or anything to be able to hate those people. I don't know them.
Right. Okay. Well, that's fair. I mean, I wouldn't have said from that conversation that I thought that you were anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
So I feel like you're good on that. You are sharing your screen still, just
Oh, okay. My bad.
with
yeah.
me, just so you know.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm
just with me. I don't know if you're sharing with chat or not, but you're sharing with me, just so you know.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. So the other one was actually something that was touched upon on the panel, but we didn't actually discuss because it wasn't actually part of the panel. Somebody had mentioned, and I honestly don't remember who, but somebody had mentioned on the panel that you don't agree with race mixing.
Oh, that's crazy. No, I have no problem with race mixing. Insane.
Okay.
God. So there was a panel where we were talking about okay, Fanatiq, person you're speaking to, I want to marry a black woman. Okay. That is something
Personal
I
preference.
want to do. Yes.
Yeah.
There was a panel where we were talking about that, and I said and I cannot tell you how many different times I said I do not extend this belief to everyone else. I don't believe that other people should have to abide by this personal belief. I want to marry a black woman. It's for me personally. I had an experience, okay, as being a person raised in what used to be a sundown town, where I was one of two black people in like the vast majority of my classrooms. I think in kindergarten there were 2 black people. First grade, 2 black people. 3 black people. I'm sorry, in the first grade. Second grade, 2 black people. Third grade, 2 black people.
Jeez.
Fourth, 2 black people. Fifth, 2, and then there became a third like midway through. Sixth, 2 black people. So, and I mean literally no Hispanic people. Okay. I think I got my actually second grade Custodio Aguilar was that was the first Hispanic person in my classroom out here. And we had Vegas, I believe. And she was like the second. She was in my third grade classroom. My point being, there was like no Hispanics. It was just white people. Okay. And growing up in that kind of an environment, there's 2 different ways that some people can respond. One of the ways is to start developing all sorts of gross sentiments of. I definitely feel like I did that because I felt like demonized in the school. I felt like I was always being attacked. I remember things like the teachers would never like call on me when I would hold up my hand. So with me, I'd be me and the other black kid. I remember his name was John Brackens. We'd be holding our hands forever, and they would just call on every other kid besides us, and it just felt like me, like, oh man, they just don't like us because we're black. And you just develop all of these things. I remember one time we got into a big old argument with one of the substitute teachers. It was me and two other black kids, and I remember us like yelling at her and calling her a racist pig. I remember those words coming out of our mouth. So it's just we had all of these experiences, and long story short, we start developing all of these like habits, like speak this way when
Okay.
and I will say in 2020, I finally had this like realization like how far that had gone. Disappointed I was in stuff. Um, it is cutting out. Son of an N word. It's not on Discord, but it is on my stream.
Oh, okay.
1 second. I have to do something.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah, it's that there's like 3 different things. So there's different filters for different things, and I think it should be fine now. Tell me if it cuts out again, please. And so when upon like so I joined a country rock band, okay? In that
Mhm.
country rock band, I had all of our fans are like, Republican folks, okay?
Okay, yeah, because country
Right. And
and rock.
right. So we weren't talking about civil rights stuff, but you got to remember like the tension and stuff that was happening around that
Oh, for
time,
sure.
right? And Black Lives Matter was trending, it had been become like a part of the forefront of the conversation. But I never brought it up or never would speak it to any of those people because of the fact that I knew that that this was these bands fans, and I just joined this family band, and I did not want to bring them trauma. So I felt it necessary to just never talk about these things. You don't discuss politics within those groups. And they kind of also implied like, hey, we would politics thing. I don't even think that they agreed with a lot of the MAGA nonsense, but ultimately they were just like, we don't do that. Like that's how you kill your opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So I never ever spoke about any of those things. So I'd be shaking these people's hands. They'd be like saying things like, you're one of the good ones. I would be always the only black person in the room, if not
I
one of
fucking
two,
hate that
every
saying
time.
so much. I hate
100%.
that saying so much. You're one of the good ones. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, it was
You're
disgusting.
not. You're not.
Right. Because it's like, yeah. Anyway, but I was constantly dealing with that, right? But I never ever brought it up. I never said anything about it, and it was just like we always did the Pledge of Allegiance, and they would always be like, "You got to stand for the flag," because we would do that at every performance. I remember one time I was wearing a hat, and they were like, "Hey, hats off," and it was just like I just realized how big a deal that was. So long story short, when I finally came to terms with all that stuff, and I was like, "Yo, I'm good on all of this," and I felt like almost a sense of a personal betrayal because of the fact that I realized how much I didn't even know the phrase internalized racism until around, but I started realizing what that was. And we had finally gotten to a point where there were marches happening. There was a guy who got hung, in 2020 when there was like the shutdowns and all those things. And
Yeah.
there was those like 3 people that got hung in the United States. There was one, I want to say back east somewhere, and then there were 2 like in California. The one that happened in California is literally less than 15 minutes from where. Okay. And so
Jeez.
they were marching. Okay. The lockdowns had happened, but they had that was the first day where like cities and things were considering we're gonna remove the lockdowns. Okay. They were marching and doing protests at the police at the city hall where the guy was hung. Okay. And as this police immediately just ruled it like, no, it was a suicide. And it was like, that seems really inconvenient for him to hang himself there, so on and so forth. And so there were like all these marches and protests that were there. Okay. That night, the bar that we typically played at opened up. So we're doing performances there. Now I've been slowly engaging with some of these people because obviously MAGA and everything is happening. And so completely nuts with the
Right.
conversations. And some of these people who have added on my friend list are like posting all lives matter and things like that. And they're just, they're going in. And so now I'm like, I gotta go shake your hand, be the same happy, hi, how you doing? Because in public, nice guy. So I'm doing all of these things while I'm recognizing that you people are antagonistic towards the issues that we're facing right now. And so
Mhm.
that felt like a betrayal. And it felt like I did that betrayal because this was part of my musical journey and part of my success, because music is an important thing to me. That was like painful. Once I
Damn.
discovered that internalized racism, I said, I don't ever want myself or anyone else, like my children, to ever go through that. And I think finding a person who can understand the depths of that internalized racism, where it stems from, and the anti-black racism that changes the image of blackness in most people's mind, including black people. Someone that can understand that and is willing to go the lengths that I want to in order to combat that. I feel like I need a black person to be able to do. Not that there's no white people that would be willing, but I think it would be
Oh,
the easiest and most likely that you're going to find a black person that's willing to do it and who would understand what anti-black internalized racism is like, because it is distinct and different from any other forms of internalized racism.
oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I understand, and I feel like anybody has a right to decide who they wouldn't want to marry.
Right.
As far as regardless of, race, gender, whoever, and that doesn't make you bigoted against that person unless you're actually a bigoted racist person.
Right. And it depends on
Oh.
what your reasoning is. If your reasoning is because I think that white people are inferior, then it's like, okay, no, that sounds like you're racist, right? Like that would be
Mhm.
one thing. But it's not. It has nothing. It's like, this is a thing, this is a goal, this is what I want to focus on. So I'm only going to marry somebody who's on these things. And there was on a Destiny panel, and Destiny was saying things like, oh, so so I get it. I mean, I would think that we would want to marry someone because of them, not because of that. And it's like, wait, no, come on. Obviously, within this constraint, I'm obviously going to be looking for love before I marry someone. It's not like the only thing is it's just that they're a black woman. There would obviously
Right.
be other things that are
You're
important to
not
me.
just gonna be like, "Oh, you're black. I'm gonna marry you."
Right, of course. That's so stupid, but that's the panel thing. And I mean,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I said, Destiny, you keep on extending this to all towards all people. I'm not even saying other people should focus on this. It's something that
Right.
I find important for me and my progeny. I don't care. Like, if other people want to marry white, Hispanic, so on and so forth, do what you do. I don't care if you do that. That has nothing to do with me. I want this for
Right.
my family and my children. That internalized racism discovery was one of the most painful experiences I've ever had in my entire life. So it's like, I don't ever want someone to, because my integrity means everything to me. And that to me, I started realizing this is a violation of my integrity to not speak up for a just cause that I believe in because I'm afraid that I might offend some people's fans. It goes against the very nature of who I am. But I
I
did
mean,
that.
I guess I just don't see. I mean, I don't see the problem with being like, I'm just I feel like I would be better off in this situation rather than this situation. Like,
Yeah.
to me it seems logical, you know.
But I mean, not if you're on a panel where people are saying, nah,
Well, yeah, of course it's going to be taken out of context and be like, "You are you saying that you shouldn't marry a white person? Like, are you not going to marry a white person?" And
nope.
the only stipulation is they're black. And yeah, no, people go for the fucking strawman shit all the time. It's so
That
stupid.
that's panels, man. That's panels, and it really, really annoys me because it's like, yo, man, I, 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 again, I can't tell you how many times I kept saying, like, over and over again, like, no, 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 it's not that, it's not that. Um, and I think that really that part, it always that's why I hate panels, because it's not
Mhm.
just. It'd be one thing if it was just, okay, people are hearing conflicting views. It's that everyone, after they're done with that, they then go and then, like, first off, because they're parroting it to their audience, like they're saying, "Oh, so you believe this?" And it's like the audience hears that, and then they almost kind of tune out when you say, "No, I do not believe that. I believe this." So then at that point, then when the panel is done, then people go and they start they kind of like dress down to their audience, like, oh, okay, so this is what the thing was about, so on and so forth. And then they'll say stuff like, I never knew that Fanatiq had such beliefs, like, and then they say things like that were said in the panel that I very clearly distinguished, like, no, I don't believe that, and things like that. And so then at
Well,
this
I
point, it
didn't talk
becomes a
about you
narrative.
after the panel.
Well, thank God, thank God, you might be one of the good ones. No, I'm
How dare you, sir?
kidding. um, man, uh, hold on, I'm still sharing my screen with you, right?
Yes.
Show you really quick. Hold on.
You got Peter Griffin there.
What do you mean?
On your screen.
Oh, on my screen? Okay, I got you.
Man, it's been a long day.
Yeah, man, look, I was so very happy when when you were late, because I was late, and I went to sleep
Oh, good.
to take a nap, and I set the
Mhm.
alarm. Alarm went off. I got up, turned the alarm off, laid right back down, went straight back to sleep. And so
Yeah,
I'm like,
I
oh
look.
God, I'm crazy late when it finally hit me.
That's all right. As somebody who's told multiple times a day that they don't respect alarm clocks.
That's crazy.
It's just,
Here.
yeah, no, I was running terribly late. I was cooking dinner for my boyfriend, and I looked over at the clock, and I was like, yeah, it's 7:30. I got some time. It's good. And then I looked back at the clock, and it said it was 8 o'clock, and I was like, that's fine. Or no, it was like 10 to 8, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I realized, oh shit, I said Eastern, and I'm Central. So I always say Eastern for everybody that's usually Eastern or Pacific,
Yeah,
But yeah.
I'm SoCal, so I'm Pacific, but I'm just used to
Oh, okay, yeah.
or in between.
Because I always say Central, and people are like, "What is that? Is that?"
That's pretty funny, actually. Yeah, I lived in Texas for a tiny bit, so I mean, I just
Oh,
had
that's where I
those
am.
rooms. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I get it. Are you in the Dallas Fort Worth area?
I am in Austin.
Oh, that's like, isn't that like music capital, like
Yeah.
of the Midwest, pretty much? Like that's it.
Well, it's also like a port for pretty much like every tequila that's made in Texas.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of breweries here. There's IBM was started out of Austin.
It's like crazy
Um,
parties and stuff and all that, right?
yeah, there's tons but that's not my I'm 36. That's not my scene.
Yeah.
But,
But I just remember someone saying it was like the live music capital of the country or some nonsense like that. And
well, it's definitely for the I would say the state for sure. I don't know about the country, but it's got a lot, yeah.
Yeah, that's because so I lived in the Dallas Fort Worth area when I lived out there, and never, and I was there during the recession, like in 2008
Okay.
and
2008, 2000,
2009.
yeah.
And then I moved to
I know it well.
Vegas. Yep, man, it was wild. But I just
Oh,
remember
you were in
trying.
Vegas? I'm in Vegas.
Yeah,
I lived in Vegas for almost my whole life.
really? Yeah,
Yeah.
man, Vegas was. I used to go there. I'm gonna say, maybe about 15 times a year because I'm in
Oh,
SoCal,
jeez.
but I used to like some of my best friends were there, and like the music games and like all the greatest music game players were there, and so I was constantly just every weekend just going to Vegas,
Nice.
spending there like I mean every week. So I would work, do the church thing, and then
Mhm.
I would get off of work and then just go straight to Vegas and then stay there for the whole week and then come back for work and then go back, and it was just constantly just doing that.
Nice.
And
Yeah, no, I miss Vegas.
it's great. It's great. Here's what's insane. Because I was there with the people, like the locals that actually lived there, I didn't even experience Vegas. I had never really walked the strip. I didn't really do any
Yeah.
of those kinds of things. It was just a total different experience. I just liked the people there.
Yeah, no, they're most of the people there are pretty cool. Yeah, no, I've lived all over. I've moved so many times. Uh, you couldn't count on 30 people's toes and fingers. How many times I moved. So, there's I Vegas is probably my favorite place that I've ever lived.
Were you like a military kid or something?
Yes, but that's not why we moved. So my dad got out of the military when I was like 2 years old. But they were always moving around. He bit off a little more than he could chew. My mom had 3 kids when he met her, and he was like 20. And he decided that he was going to take it all on. So he did that with like 3 jobs.
Mm.
And he was always trying to find a way so that he could only work 1 or 2 jobs. So we moved around a lot trying to figure out how he didn't have to work until he died.
What is it? How old was your mom when he met her?
She was 33. No, well, she was 32 and he was 19. And then they got together, or they married a year later. And then they had me like 8 months later.
That is a very atypical kind of arrangement, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, it's definitely not something that happens a lot.
Yeah. You feel
But
you feel like that
oh,
made you pretty different, like in just the way that you approach or see the world or see relationships or develop your relationship dynamics at all?
um, to be fair, it did. My parents' relationship was unlike what I saw in most people's parents' relationships. Like, my dad looked at my mom like she was the best thing in the world, and it was the same thing for her. And I mean, they would dance in parking lots, and there wasn't a time when my dad would leave the room that he didn't kiss my mom goodbye. And I'm just saying, like, leave the room. So yeah, but I mean, it made up for the fact that we really had nothing else. So the love that we had as a family kind of helped.
That's beautiful.
So,
That's beautiful. I mean, because I feel like a lot of times in relationship, and this is something that American culture has kind of gotten really hardcore, like the idea of about marrying for love and things like that. But with arrangements and things like that, it wasn't the case. And a lot of other cultures, they like marry based on arrangement relationships tend to last longer than love-based relationships.
mhm.
And then I think stress is like one of the biggest things that like causes you see the worst in people when they're stressed. So I would
Right.
imagine working 3 jobs and all that stuff would probably have been that. It seems like you guys' love as a family was sounds crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there like I won't tell you that there weren't times that like his anger was like too much for anybody to handle. But that like we all kind of just chopped it up to the fact that he did work 3 jobs, and it was 2, so there were 2 full-time jobs that he worked back to back. And then on his days off, he worked a part-time job, and we had a family business on the side. So,
Mm,
I mean, he never slept.
yeah.
Like, he was constantly on the go, and it was because my mom was sick and she couldn't work herself. And this happened like a couple of years after they had me. So it was like something that was like sporadic that happened randomly. But he never complained. He never made it my mom's problem that she couldn't be his equal in that sense. It was never a problem. She was always a priority, and he always made sure that even though it wasn't always the best food or the freshest food or whatever, but we always had food on the table and a roof over our heads. So didn't always have furniture, but
Yeah.
we were taken care of for the things that actually mattered.
So then I think having like a stay-at-home mom, then that means that like she kind of you guys were able to have like a kind of dependent or not dependent, a dependable like home figure. So then that gives
A
you a little
lot of
bit
the
of security, right?
times for when we were younger, that was the case for sure. But once I hit maybe like 9 or 10, she got very ill, and um, for 3 to 4 years, I barely remember her coming out of her room. Uh, so at that point, it was up to my older brother and sister to raise me.
Wow. Um, how much older are your older siblings?
My sister is almost 5 years older than me, and my brother is nearly 7 years older than me.
Hmm. So look, I'm the youngest of 7. My parents had
Okay.
4 boys, 5 boys, 2 girls, and
So you know what it means. Your parents definitely put your older siblings in charge of you all the time, right?
100%. My siblings
Yeah.
raised me like 100%.
Yeah.
Because so when my mom, when I was about, dang, is it still tripping? I raised it and everything. When it's why would it be changing my input gain without me?
Look, Discord's been doing some weird fucking shit to me, and so is OBS. Like, I use the same fucking microphone every goddamn time I stream, and
Ouch.
yet
Yeah, it's
it
crazy.
still fucking switches on me.
Man, I don't understand. I didn't do any. Okay, this is weird. What I was gonna say was, yeah, I when it, so my mother, she went to school, she went to college when I was in the first grade. Um, and as soon as she started going to college, like she was like in her books full time, and she had
Mhm.
7 children. And my dad would be in and out doing different nonsense, and so sometimes he was there, sometimes he wasn't. And because of that, I like a lot of a lot of the stuff that she did with my older siblings, I kind of got skipped over, I guess, in a sense. And almost like I can remember being like in the first grade, or the second grade, and my mom having classes at the college, and so she was leaving us, to to be at the house by ourselves.
Right, fend
um
for yourselves, basically.
right. And so then I had a sister, who's 5 years older than me to the day.
Mhm.
And
Oh
she,
wow, to the day.
yeah, because 2 of us have the same birthday. Just there's 3 Octobers, and yeah, me and my sister are identical birthdays, but she's 5 years older. And
That's really cool.
yeah, for sure. And I've always felt a close bond to her for that. But she would watch us, okay? Like she was the one
Right.
that was responsible. And you think she's 12 years old, and she's watching my brother, who is 3.5 years older than me, and then another sibling who's a year and a half older than me, and then me. And it's like, to put that on a 12-year-old sounds wild, but back in the day, that was a normal thing. We all did. Like that was just
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
what.
no, that's the 90s, 80s
Yeah, it's crazy.
mentality. It was like, you've got an older sibling, you now have your own nanny.
There it is, and it's like, bruh, she's 10. Like, what are we
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about?
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I always try to remind my sister of that. I'm like, stop putting Jesse in charge of Allison.
Right, because man, but it was
You
even
remember what you
wilder.
used to do to me?
Dude, it gets worse though. My grandmother, I remember. So my grandmother, she when my grandfather was off working and stuff like that, and this can sound completely nuts.
Oh,
But she would
I'm
need.
sorry. Hold on one second.
All right, no problem.
Yeah.
Mic settings here.
All right. Sorry. I just got a raid. I wanted to thank them.
Oh, that's awesome. Um, yeah, my grandmother, she would she would need to go to the grocery store, and so she left her 3 and 4-year-old child
Yes.
to take care of her like 1-year-old. Like, okay, just watch him, make sure you feed him. Like, my
Yeah,
brain can't comprehend what that is
that's a
to me.
lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
That's
The on-
yeah.
yeah, I don't. Just the only thing that I can think of that comes to mind is there was. Have you ever seen the movie The Mist?
Hmm.
Okay, so there's that lady, and she's like, I don't remember the little girl's name, but she's like, my 5-year-old's at home, and she forgets sometimes to watch the 2-year-old, and she's like, of course she does. She's 5.
Right, right. I Tell me, you might need to adjust the mic a little bit, because I finally found out where the freaking source of the problem was. Am I too loud now?
No, you're good on me.
Okay, that's good, and it should be like crystal clear across the board now.
All
I'm
right,
probably not
cool.
going to be able to use this content, but that's okay. Still fun talking to you anyway. What was I saying? Yeah, but so it was nuts. Like I think that idea of like having the home figure and stuff, it sounds good. But my mother, there was a point in time where she also went through like a very, very severe depression. She was like hyper
Okay.
depressed during this time. She just has a naturally melancholy personality, but on top of that, she was depressed. And I think I had just normalized to it, because it was just I was used to her being in her room all the time, because at school she was always studying and so on and so forth. And we were in a 4-bedroom apartment, and there were like seven children there, and her and sometimes my dad. And so it was like It was a lot. And so what my mother, she said she hated just the experience and just being in such a tight, cramped apartment. But of course, when you're raised there, like my first memories were from a townhouse. It was a 2-bedroom townhouse. That's where we were. So I was just used to these kind of tight living situations. That was normal to me. So, but because of that, she was in her room all the time, which meant that the house was left to the siblings. Like we had our own little distinct culture that we had to live by. And every now and then you would just go to mom for the enforcer of like, hey, so-and-so is doing such and such.
Right. Yes.
But she wasn't really making the rules and running things. She was just, if things got out of hand, you knew that was like your trump card.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah. No, I get you. That's exactly how it was. I mean, I didn't have nearly as many siblings.
Yeah.
But I mean, for a time we did have cousins living with us, but that's not the same thing. But I can't even imagine living with that many siblings. But I mean, my dad, he's the youngest of 6. His mom is the youngest of 12, and his dad is the youngest of 16. No, not the youngest of 16. He's the 3rd of 16.
I can't count that high.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah. My dad came from like 10. And we thought that was absurd. I don't even know what 16 means.
Yeah, no, it's stupid. It's Southern white people, so.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad's from the South, and I think that's what they all had large families. We had a big family because of the place we were in, the religious institution that we were associated with taught against birth control. So there was like no birth control allowed. And so then and they also taught against television. So you can only imagine having no television and no birth control allowed. You're just going to be having big families. And so it was like common. Everybody had huge families.
Yeah, no, this is the same thing. It's like they'd have as many babies as possibly could. Well, and especially like living on farms and stuff. It's like you had as many as you could, so you could have as many people helping you out as you needed. Like
all of them were workers. They actually helped. But that's actually a thing. It makes so much sense. Like, again, we always got to look at things in context because, in like in African countries and stuff like that, where agriculture is like a really, really big thing for some of them, like having a big family is everything.
Look, I am not hating on it because that's exactly what happened with me. I told you we had a family business. Like we had a family janitorial service. So we cleaned buildings in the middle of the night. So like office buildings and all kinds of like dance studios, that kind of thing. But they'd literally during the summer they would wake us up at like 3 a.m. and we'd go from 3 a.m. till about 7 a.m. Cleaning certain buildings. And then we'd go home, we'd eat a breakfast, we'd sleep for about an hour, and we'd wake up and start the rest of our day. Like, and that's what we did for our summers.
You would do that during the summer, but you wouldn't do that during school sessions?
So during the school days, what we would do is they would go and clean 2 buildings by themselves. So when my dad wasn't able to, my brother would go with my mom. So they would clean the 2 buildings by themselves, and then they would come back and they would pick me and my sister up, and we would do the last 4 buildings, and then we would either like go grab breakfast at like McDonald's or something and then go home, or we'd just go home and pass out for like an hour or 2. And then go to school. But yeah, like we do I think it was like 45 minutes to an hour that I got to rest before I went to school.
My God. That's so bad. But I mean, I get it. Like when you're in struggle situations, that's just the way.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
But man, like just looking back at like a bunch of that and just listening to this right now, that just sounds, it's literal insanity. It's not functional.
If you talked about it like now, people would be like, "Oh, your parents abused you." I'm like, that's not really how I felt about it.
For sure.
Like, I mean, technically, I guess you could say that, but I don't really feel like that's. I don't really. I feel fine.
I mean, it's because it's one of those things. Look, again, children will normalize to everything. Do I think that that's something that I think most people should do? Absolutely not. I think children should be getting like as much sleep as possible, like, you know, as healthy
Right.
and all those kinds of things. But like in struggle situations, life isn't going to be ideal. And I think we almost have this. We have this concept in America, which I think it's a privileged concept, which is a good privileged concept, but like that life is supposed to be pristine and ideal. Children are supposed to be brought up and like pampered and things like that. And that's what I would want for my children. I would,
Oh God,
honestly.
me too.
But like I get where my mother was coming from, where it was like, hey, look, you're gonna kind of be left to your own. You better figure life out, because she was busy. She had to do school. Like she was a single mom of like 7 people sometimes. Like again, my dad was in and out. He had drug stuff and all sorts of other problems. But she was like, I gotta be the stable one. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna take care of my kids. I gotta make this work. And so school was that option. School was that thing that was going to help her elevate to where she would be able to like buy a house and like take care of the children.
Right.
And so she did all of those things. Like I was neglected in a lot of ways, but it was because she was like, this is the only way we're going to survive. Welfare ain't
Right.
going to last forever. I'm not like, and she was on welfare at the time when she was going to school. And it was like, this isn't going to work if I don't figure out a way of like elevating. Because even if she had gotten a minimum wage job with that many children, well, that life isn't going to work. You see what I'm saying? Like you just had to do that. So I think I look at it and I think to myself, yeah, it's not ideal. Like, and I do have like some resentment for like some of the like neglect and
Right.
things,
Of course.
but ultimately it's like I understand why she did it, and it was still done out of love. It wasn't like she was just some vicious evil person. It's just that's
Right.
life. And same like with your dad, it's
Yeah.
like I'm not trying to work my kids to the bone or all these things, but it's like we have to make ends meet. Like you know what I mean? Like I got to make it work,
Right.
and yeah, you know,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
just
No.
life.
No, it is tough, but it's like I look at how kids are being brought up today and I don't agree with it either. So it's like
Mm.
I feel like, you know, a lot of the things where it's just like everything's just so chaotic. And you know, everybody's pushing everything on everybody, and the internet is basically raising the children, and you've got so much self-entitlement out there. I think there's more self-entitlement out there than there ever has been, or just been like exponentially blown out of proportion by the fact that people can share their opinions on social media.
Listen, you are spitting. I talk about that all the time. I genuinely think social
Yeah.
media has just made everybody feel like there's all this self-aggrandizement that just happened. Like Oprah was already doing it by like making everyone feel like they had valid opinions on her show, and I feel like nowadays, like on social media, like, it's evident to me when people take pictures of their food. When they take pictures of like, this is what I had for lunch, and they share that stuff, to me, it just lets me know you really think people caring about you, nigga. Because there's no way. I don't care what you had for lunch. It's not important to me. Like, whatever. But I'm telling you, all that opinion nonsense and an echo chamber retardation just allows everybody to get into these circles where everyone feels like their opinions matter. And then now as a result of this, everyone just has this entitlement. Like this, it's gross as freak.
Right.
I don't know, man. It's
Well, and also
nuts.
there seems to be this like misunderstanding of them thinking there's no repercussions for things that they say or do like online or like on IRL streams or like the streamers in general, where it's like, oh, I'm a streamer, so you can't touch me. But it's like, this is insane. This is people's lives. This is like, and I don't know. And then you have got the people that can't sign off line to save their lives.
100%. I mean, and it makes sense because you normalize this stuff, and you know this becomes your culture. I think, man, I don't know. I'm a really lucky person, okay, in the sense that like having such a humongous family, the social dynamics were like absurd, right? Like I don't think people can understand what it's like to manage 8 different relationships in a household. Like,
Right.
it's a lot in a very confined area where constant negotiations and things like that are happening, and everyone has distinct personalities, and having to navigate that creates a different type of social like understanding about like give and takes and all of these kinds of things. And so I say that to say that normalized me in a certain way that I wouldn't have been otherwise. I think being a gamer and like having like the online experience, because internet, like we got internet when I was about 14, I'm gonna say, and like being like in that environment. But I started gaming when I was like 5 or 6, okay? And I
Right.
think if I hadn't have had all of these older siblings, some of whom were not at all associated with gaming, were more hood niggas and things like that, and just having like these dynamic experiences, I would have been a very abnormal, probably never touch grass online nigga. But I think because there's all this distinction, I've always had a separation where I feel like there's an online thing that I know that this is online internet retardation stuff, and then I have my real life, which is an entirely different experience altogether.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't know, but then a lot of people don't have that. I can only imagine what I would be like if I was raised by 4chan and on the internet like irrevocably. What the freak would I be?
I'm
How
so
would life
glad that I
be?
wasn't, to be honest. Like it's just like I feel like things are so much easier now, but the things that are easier now aren't necessarily necessary for like a good life experience.
For sure.
I mean, so it's like a lot of things are being erased that were actually good experiences, like receiving letters.
Yeah. Man, I remember writing letters with my junior high girlfriend.
Do you remember being able to sign a letter? Because now kids can't sign their own name.
Man,
it pisses me off.
See, look, but there's some benefits, okay? Because again, man, I feel like a lot of stuff, like cursive. What was the point of that being real?
Absolutely nothing other than to make you feel stupid.
Okay, because I in hindsight, it's like, why did I need to learn that? Now, there's some stuff like, okay, like someone like, I remember them telling us you got to learn to spell because you won't always have a spell checker with you. You got to learn to do this math because you're not always going to have a calculator. They were wrong about that. And who could have known technology would be so ham like in our lifetimes, okay? Like we didn't know
everything at our fingertips now.
Right. We didn't know that was going to happen. So I understand that stuff. They were wrong, but I understand why they were wrong, okay? But some of the stuff, it just seemed like it was just nonsense. And I don't know. But yeah, I think all of that's another thing, man, that I think is problematic, and I've just had to adjust because I saw it from pretty much the beginning. Before, when you needed to connect to people, you had to maintain like a specific relationship with people in order to feel connected, in order to get that kindred relationship, right? And now, because of social media, it makes people feel like they're connected to you because they're your friend on Facebook and they see a post of yours every now and then. And so then at that point, they don't realize like you don't have a connection with me. You don't even know what I'm going through. You don't know my life. This connection is not genuine at all. It's the most superficial connection you can possibly have. But
you have no idea what
gross.
My day has been like. You have nothing but what I tell you.
Right. The highlights.
Yeah.
That's not real. But then that's what people feel connected through. And so we're becoming much, much more distant as a society. And and then someone else, I remember reading this thing where they said that we're supposed to have like at maximum, like 100 people connection, like in our social circle, including extended family, extended relationships, like 100 people is about what we're meant to manage. And now we're managing like thousands because of like social media and stuff. And it's just not real. And so we don't even know what it's doing to our psyches and on our sense of connection and all those kinds of things. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. There's just too much. And then, like people will get very like overly friendly on Twitter, where they become like, oh yeah, you're my best friend, even though I know nothing about you type situation. So, yeah.
Have you experienced a lot of that parasocial stuff on your stream where people feel like they know and love you and they don't know you at all?
It's actually not so bad with the stream as it is like in the communities that I fall in. So it's more so like in the chat that I go, like chats that I go into where it's more parasocial than it is with like people who are maybe in my chat that it's parasocial. Like the only person that's actually, and I wouldn't even call it parasocial, the only person that talks to me, or the only people that talk to me like they know me, are people that I've known for more than 5+ years.
Yeah.
So it's like those are the only people that are like, hey, this is this and that is that and blah blah blah, and I feel like can talk to me about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The same thing happened to me. Like I want to say, so I got engaged about, I don't know, I'm terrible with time. So I'm going to say like about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
No. I got engaged last year. That's what it was. It was last year on my birthday. And the person who was going to be the best man, who came all the way for that engagement, is a guy that was my first time actually personally meeting him. A
Okay.
dude named Jeff. Now, we used to be on Discord talking, and just I consider him to be one of my best friends ever. And that I met him through online, through fighting games and through Twitch, and he became one of my best friends. And now I've known
Okay.
him about 11 years.
That's all.
Yeah, he's actually the person that even gave me the phrase internalized racism, and he helped me understand it through his own experience of internalized racism. And I'm like, that's what this is, because I didn't even have the word for it. And it was a very, and I don't think had he been there, I don't think I would have processed it in the same way, because I have a tendency to just kind of do things cerebrally, but not really emotionally. But he's
So you like kind of barrel over them when it comes to like the emotional aspect of it.
Absolutely. And he is he has like an extremely high emotional IQ, although he's also
Okay.
particularly intelligent. Like very, very intelligent, but also stupid high emotional IQ. So then when we're talking, it makes it so easy to like
Yes.
weave those two together, because he has that. So he's constantly almost forcing me to seeing this other perspective, or asking these very pointed questions, which make me have to confront the emotions of the thing, but then also able to engage the intellectual aspect. So I'm not feeling like I'm just talking to a dummy, which is going to make my guard go up, you know?
Right.
So that's a person that there should have been a parasocial relationship, but we developed a genuine kindredness there. And then I have a brother who, I mean, I guess we were cool. Like I knew him through fighting games. We'd been around each other before, but I don't think we bonded like to the degree that we are now, except for online, because he lives all the way in freaking Maryland. So then like
Okay.
90% of the time I'm like, he's there. And so I'm talking to him. We interact on a regular basis. I just consider him to be one of the closest people in my life. But in reality, it's been almost exclusively online. I mean, obviously I first met him in person at a tournament, but like the relationship we developed has been almost all online. So it can happen, but
yeah. Well, I mean, my boyfriend now, of almost 5 years, I met him online.
Yeah.
So
it happens. It happens. Did you meet him through Twitch?
No, I met him through a mobile phone game.
Do you mind me asking which game?
Summoners War?
Never even heard of it.
It's kind of like Clash of Clans.
Okay.
Yeah. There's like what?
I was gonna say I mean I've never I don't play any mobile games.
Mm-hmm.
Were you one of those people that put a lot of money into it?
No, absolutely not. Neither does he.
So you
but
grinded
no,
it?
it was. Oh yeah, I'm a grinder for sure. And I had my own guild, so he ended up joining my guild. We became kind of like acquaintances, and then became friends, and then we started really liking each other. And then we shared pictures, then we started video chatting and phone calling, and then he came out to Vegas to see me, and we just kept flying out to see each other until I moved out here.
Wow. So so since TwitchCon is in Vegas this year, you're going, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, this is gonna be my first year going.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been partnered on Twitch since 2011, and I've never ever I've never done anything.
God.
Right? Like I've never.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm still just a lowly affiliate.
Yeah, I got partnered because at the time I was like huge in fighting games, and so
Okay, makes sense.
there was a point in time when I remember I was just doing a stream. It was a really spicy stream. I had this girl, and she would just come on the stream and just answer questions. She would just talk Q&A, and of course, Twitch chat, they're gonna ask nothing but
right, of course,
sexual questions, but she would answer them because she was kind of ditzy, but a really sweet person. And I don't know if it was the CEO of Twitch or whoever. It was like one of the highest person on Twitch tweeted out my stream. It was like, "Hey, Mr. Fanatiq stream is getting really spicy," and it just like a bunch of people like just came. I don't even know if they had like an organized front page of Twitch at the time. It was like a total different thing. But yeah, it was huge, and I could like tweet out back then. Like, hey, go to this stream real quick, follow this person, they're crazy or they're interesting, whatever. And like you would instantly get like 500 or 600 viewers. So at the time it was just, I got partnered based off of my name and just what I had accomplished within the fighting game community. And then when I quit fighting games and became a League of Legends player, and it was like all that disappeared. And even like my Twitter at this point, I think I have like 8,000 followers because I've just been like kind of slowly losing followers, but it's the vast majority of people who are following who just haven't unfollowed are all fighting game people.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's a total different environment. But yeah, I think I want to go because I love Vegas, and what hurts me the most is they have the Twitch party, TwitchCon party is going to be at Area 15.
Oh.
Have you been to Area 15?
Yes.
That is one of my favorite experiences I've ever had.
It's pretty cool.
Did you do the Mega Mart or whatever it's called? The Supermart?
No. I did the axe throwing.
They have a Mega Mart in there, okay? And it feels like you're like on a drug trip.
Ooh.
You just go in there and I love the way that they present I love to discover things on my own as much as I can. And the guy who worked at Area 15 told me, he just said, we were like, oh, we're just gonna buy a pack, because there's just all this nonsense happening when you walk in there. And so we're like, we want to get the package, just whatever that allows you to do like maybe 4 or 5 things, and we'll decide which 5 things you want to do. And he was like, okay, have you ever been here before? And we're like, no. And he's like, okay, listen, I'm gonna tell you something. So I'm like, hey, so what do you recommend? What's the best thing to do? And he was just like, look, I mean, I don't sell this, okay? But I'm telling you, the best thing to do here is to go to that Mega Mart. And I walked by it, it just looked like a little grocery store. So I was like, I don't want to go in no freaking knockoff grocery store. It sounds like a waste of freaking time.
Right.
He's like, you go in there. And he was like, people come here and they can spend hours, 4 or 5 hours just in there alone. Like, that is the experience. And so I was like, okay, I guess. I don't know. So we're like, he's like, I'm telling you, that is the thing that you want to do if you've never been, and it should be a mind-blowing experience. And so we're like, I don't know how you can spend this much time in a grocery store. I genuinely don't know. But I mean, he's recommending it, and my mind is open. So it's like, all right, let's go. So we go in there, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I'm saying it was everything that he said. It was, I was like, yo, nothing else. This is what Area 15 is. Everything else doesn't even freaking matter. And so we went in there, and yeah, my mind was blown, and it was just like, what the freak? And then there's just so much discovery in that place that it's a whole nother experience. I'm telling you. And
cool.
And I didn't get to go back. Damn. I didn't get to go back. And I've been like wanting to go because I went for my ex-fiance's for her 40th birthday. And so that was last year in September. So now I want to go back, but then they sold out of the freaking tickets. So now,
yeah, I know. I mean, they were expensive tickets.
I don't care. I'd have did it.
Yeah.
I'd have did it.
Yeah, no, it would be nice to have been able to do that for sure.
My God,
that's going to be one hell of a party.
There's no way it's not going to be the most sick part. Man, I don't know, bro. Dang, I might just have to go home and buy some scalped tickets. Is that possible? Is that a thing?
I have no idea. I'm sure it is. I'm sure there's somebody giving them out or selling them for loads of money.
I might have to do that.
Yeah. But I was going to be in Vegas anyway, so I'm glad I'm going.
Yeah, man. And it's like a 3-hour drive for me. So I'm just going to drive over there.
Oh yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah. I used to drive it I had like this old beater car, and as soon as I discovered, because originally I was like catching the Greyhound bus to get there, which is awful, terrible experience. And
I took a Greyhound from Phoenix to Vegas, so I get you.
That's probably like 6 hours, 7?
It was a 10-hour bus ride.
Oh God, it's so awful. I didn't mind though back in the day. I was a kid. I was young. I was like 18, 19 years old. I was riding them, but bruh, sometimes you have to sit in the back next to the bathroom.
Yes, that's where I.
Nah, that's too much. And every time they open that dang door,
oh God, it smells so bad.
Man, nah, Greyhound was but I used to ride it, and them seats was nasty. I was a kid. You know what I'm saying.
Those Saved by the Bell looking seats.
Yeah, that's exactly what they look like now that I think about it. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I gotta look for them scout tickets. But yeah, I used to drive there all the time. And I found out my car could make it because it was like the car was as old as I was. It was from 1984, and I bought it when I was 18 years old. My grandmother's old car. Then she gave it to my aunt, and my aunt sold it to me. And I was driving.
I was driving my grandma's old car too.
That's why, bro. We got a gang of similarities. Yeah, but I started driving, and one year I was like, I'm just gonna see if it can make it, and I did it, and it drove there, made it perfectly fine.
Nice.
Like, oh, that's it. And so I'm telling you, I would get off of work on Saturday, and I would just drive straight to Vegas. That was it.
Nice.
We'd just crash there.
That's cool.
So I want to show you some of these parts of this conversation, okay? Really quickly, if I can.
Yeah. Cool.
This is one of the ones that really, really kills me. Peep this out. Listen to this.
Okay, what's up?
It should open. It didn't. Why didn't it open? 1 second. If it doesn't do it that way, I might just have to manually type it because I timestamped it. Keep this out.
It just says stream is paused. There you go.
All right, here we go. Paste. Okay, listen to this.
I just like I didn't know that in such a short time we would be people on the left would be arguing against interracial dating. I don't know.
I don't know that. Number one, I'm not arguing against interracial dating because again, you keep doing this mischaracterization thing. You should probably stop that. So I'm not saying that other people can't date of people that are racist. I'm not saying other black people can't date people of the.
Well, you were making it sound like it would be misguided if white people. Hold on, you made it. You said.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, that's annoying.
I know for a fact he knows I wasn't advocating for that. And you hear me directly say, I'm not advocating this for any other person. This is my personal choice. Yet
he does that shit on purpose.
Yes, he does. And now I'm not even kidding you, about 2 years, I mean, I can show you time after time after time where I'm saying exactly what I thought. The same thing I said to you over and over.
Yeah.
And intentionally he kept saying, oh, so you don't like race mixing. You don't like race mixing. You don't like. And so now to this day, people say, oh, Fanatiq, he's anti-race mixing.
That's so
Fanatiq
stupid.
is racist. And it's like, what are you talking? Bro, this is wild. I mean, I couldn't have made it more clear. I could not. And I mean, that's just one example where he talked over me. There were so many times where I kept saying, where no one else is talking, I don't care about other people's choices. This is my choice for just me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And to this day, I'm still some racist person that's against race mixing. I can't fix that.
Some shit.
I can't.
That's some shit. Okay, I have to comment on the fact that for some reason Idiocracy is in your little thing right there on the side in the yellow.
Oh yeah.
Because that is on mine all the time.
Is it? It's a good movie.
It is a great movie.
Yeah. That's the world we're living in.
Yeah, for sure. It's we're like one step away from people just spraying Brondo all over their plants. It's what the plants crave. It's just
so where do you fall politically? I have no idea, by the way.
I'm a dirty centrist. But it's mostly because I have a hard time saying that I'm fully for one side when I know that that the left isn't fully what I want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I have to say that I'm in the middle because I don't just vote depending on who's Republican and who's Democrat. I have to believe in what they're actually saying for me to vote for them. And if it doesn't align with my beliefs, then I will not vote for somebody just because they're in my party.
Oh, so you're an intelligence interest.
I try to be.
Because I don't know why people use the phrase dirty centrist. Because to me, I feel like if you can just like wholesale like buy the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, you're retarded.
Me too.
That doesn't work. They're both of them are insane. So, but I mean, I guess they don't like people to be in the middle to be able to say like, I don't know, I can see some of these conservative values here, and I can also see some of these, these values of liberty here, and I think it's crazy. But I don't know. Yeah, but if you're in Twitch politics, and I think this is also the algorithm's fault. It's really easy to get polarized, right?
Yeah.
Because your echo chambers are going to agree with you all the time and tell you what you're saying is right. And that validation does stuff to your psyche to accept it even more so, and then to seek out that validation. So now you're looking for, okay, what's the position that's going to win me the most favor? And so it becomes that becomes the thing.
That's like for me when I'm doing panels or I'm like having a conversation with somebody like I am with you, like I try to avoid looking at my chat. Like I'll look to see if anybody's directly talking to me or whatever, but I really try not to take my opinions from my chat. Like there's quite a few times where people will, send me information and stuff like that, but unless I've looked it up myself, I know for sure what I'm talking about. It's not something that I'm going to bring up just because somebody may be able to say something better than I can.
Yeah.
It's like I have to have done the research. I have to know what I'm talking about in order to be able to speak on it.
Same. There are some times though where, depending on like who I'm debating and things, there's a guy named Backlash. And it's not that I don't take things from him that I wasn't thinking or that whatever, but he just has a way of he'll say things in a way that like aphoristically, right? Where it's like I can be kind of verbose at times, and then he'll just like condense the argument to like, hey, here's a perfect analogy, and then it's like, oh yeah, this is it. So then I will definitely like take that and like add that into whatever it is I'm saying.
That makes sense. But as long as it's in lining with what you're already saying, but it's not like, that makes perfect sense. I do that same thing with my boyfriend too, where he says he comes up with something that makes way more sense, or it's more eloquently put than what I'm saying. Because sometimes I'm at a loss for words, like, and I stumble, but he can say something so precisely and like sum up my opinions without me having fully said them, which is crazy, but it's cool sometimes.
I see.
Other times I'm like, you're way off.
Yeah. I mean, nobody gonna get it right all the time, but I mean, it's still OD that, you have that, sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
Look, when I bring back the Fanatiq panel, I'm gonna need you to be on it.
For sure. That would be great. I would love to be on that.
Yeah. I mean, we did a few of them, like, and I'm telling you, I don't believe in any kind of blood sports. Prime's panels are one of the most toxic things you can be on. Like, I'm dead serious. It's just they're just absurd, and I'm gonna end up doing that repeating thing and just yelling over everybody the whole time because I know they're gonna try to cut me off. Because here's the deal. I guess you can call me a centrist in some ways. I've always used the phrase I'm a conservative progressive, which means that I think I'm pretty socially conservative on some things, and then I'm also very economically progressive. You're not going to get social conservatism at all on the left with liberals, and then you're not going to get economic progressive values at all with Republicans, right?
Yeah.
And right-leaning people. So it does put me somewhere at a mixture.
It is nice to have a healthy mixture.
Right. So then that's where I stand. And I think that most people would stand if they actually analyze their values instead of just letting the party give them their values.
Me too. Sometimes I'm just looking at people and I'm like, I can't wrap my head around the fact that you're putting your whole chest into saying certain things that you're saying.
100%.
Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you're really going to double down on that? Really?
Yeah, no, they didn't get that. They didn't get it naturally because this is what the party told them. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important though to be able to fully express a thought, right? Because even when it came to just 2 days ago, I was having a conversation with this guy named Actual Jake, legit leftist crazy person, and he was asking me like about like same-sex marriage, and he said, yeah, how do you feel about gay people? And that's a broad question. What do you mean? And he was like, do you think it's wrong to be gay? And I'm like, okay, look, tell me if this answer is fair. Okay, I am a biblical fundamentalist because I'm very much a Christian. Okay, so as such, I subscribe to the Bible for the authority for my life. However, I also realize that I live in a society that is secular. So a secular society is not going to submit to the Bible as the authority. So because of that, I have to understand that other secular people are not going to see it as wrong, and they're going to live their lives as they see fit. So from a spiritual moral perspective, then yes, I believe it's wrong because I think the Bible's pretty clear about homosexuality in both the Old and New Testament. But from a secular position, Obviously, it's not going to be wrong to those people because they're not going to deontologically follow a Bible. So for them, then it's going to be perfectly fine. And I would advocate for people in a secular society to live how they see fit. But for my personal choice, I would subscribe to the Bible for myself and hopefully my children and my family. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. I'm religious too, though. I'm. It's hard for me to fully say that. I 100% believe in the Lord. Do I mix that with other people? No, not anymore. I got mixed up in that, where I let the church dictate my relationship with God, and it didn't turn out well for me. And it's much easier for me to just read the word on my own time and pray with my boyfriend and discuss things, but when I know that it's going to be a topic of like harassment, it's not something that I like will just kind of throw out there, where I have no problem saying that I believe in God, but I have a problem saying that I'm religious. Does that make sense?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
That's so interesting. So, man, I don't know. I think I had like an extremely similar situation. I was raised in like this organization that like kind of dictated how you thought about everything in your relationship with God, and you didn't actually have a personal relationship with God. It was whatever they said, right?
It was based on what the church deemed was appropriate for what your relationship with God was, which I found like extremely odd. Like there were pushing for things that I didn't understand. And I mean, I grew up 100% in the church, with as busy as my dad was. Sundays was the only day that he took off. And that was the day that we spent all day at church. We, is the early Sunday morning service. I would go in and volunteer for the nursery. And then the service after that, I would stay for the actual service. And then when I got a little bit older, I did the nanny thing, the service thing, or sorry, I did nannying as well, but that has nothing to do with the church. The daycare. So I did the daycare with the infants in the early mornings, and then I would go to teen group for the afternoon, and then night I would do the night service with my parents. And then Tuesdays was teen group. Wednesdays was cell night, which meant that instead of going to church, we went to like another like religious household basically, and we did things there. And then we also had a Thursday night service as well.
So how old were you when you kind of developed your own personal relationship and you kind of broke free of the church ruling and telling you how to live your life?
15, 16 is when we actually moved away from Vegas, which was the church that I was involved in, which, funnily enough, eventually became the church that Trump got baptized in.
Oh gosh, really?
Yep. So you can imagine how I feel about that church.
Yeah. So there was some evangelical stuff, huh?
Oh God, you have no idea. And that I actually go over that kind of stuff in my on my channel, because I got so wrapped up in it, and it was all of me basically, and the things that I wasn't allowed to do versus the things that I could do. But it was the small things, like going to a Christian school and being told like every Friday we had service and we'd go back to class and they'd be like, the kindergartners were praising and worshiping harder than you guys were in junior high. And I was like, of course they were, the kindergartners. Like you tell them to worship and you put on a great song and they're going to jump around and worship.
Right.
Like I just the thought of it was just mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And it was just like the snap of reality. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to start doing my research on maybe other religions and see how I fall into place on those. And eventually I came back to Christianity and I was like, this is where I want to be, but not under your scrutiny.
Right. Right.
And it's like, and you know, the funny thing to me is, again, bringing it back to the fucking movie The Mist. I don't know why that keeps popping up in my head.
It's a good movie.
But there was something that a guy said right before he like went outside, was to this really zealot religious lady, and he was like, I believe in God too. I just don't believe he's the condescending asshole that you think he is.
Yeah.
You know, and that's literally my takeaway from it, is like, I just
100%.
wow.
Yeah.
You know?
Nah, listen, everything you're saying is spot on. You're spitting, because like, just having a similar experience. I talk about it pretty often now. For years I didn't. But religion has like very much shaped me a lot. But I think when I finally, I would say around 18, 19 is when I finally like got my own thing, where it was like, I'm reading the Bible for myself and started to determine like what exactly I believe. And because there was so much like nonsense with like things you could do, things you're not allowed to do.
Right. And there was a lot of you, at certain points you could do this, but you can't do this, but then you could do this.
Yeah.
So
what I learned, okay, look, because the environment I was in, I consider it very cult-like. And in that thing, what I discovered is that most people aren't actually living according to the rules of what they dictate. It's just on paper they are, and in public they are, but they're all like on the low doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. For example,
absolutely,
we weren't allowed to have television, okay? And so what people started doing was they started doing what they would say they had a monitor, okay? We don't have a television, we have a monitor. And so then they would get a TV, just not hook it up to like the cable stations, whatever. And then they would get a VCR, and then they'd watch like the stuff on that.
Oh
right?
my gosh.
And so it's like, you're doing the TV thing. Or when it got to a point where it was like, okay, we got a computer and we can Netflix on our computer, but we can't watch television. And it's like, what like, bro, you're basically doing it. And I remember one time going to, at the time it was this place called Blockbuster Music. And they used to rent videos as well. And, or no. It was Music Plus. Music Plus, that was the name of it. And they also rented videos. And those and seeing one of the people from our organization leaving that place and getting whatever. And it was like, oh, so y'all got TV too, huh? And it was
right.
but no one ever said a word. And that was just the end of it. And it was like, again, it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, because we weren't allowed to go to amusement parks. It's like, I know y'all niggas is going to amusement park. Y'all can miss me. Like, I know you guys are doing all the stuff that we're saying that we're not allowed to do. It's just that it's all on the low. It's all on the low. That's the thing, man.
I mean, my parents, we were allowed to watch TV, but the regulations on what we were allowed to watch was like very strict. So not until I was like in my late teens did I actually start to watch a lot of the things that like most kids watched, you know, in their like preteens, basically. So like, so there were things that I missed completely, like the Smurfs or what were they? Care Bears, Rainbow Bright, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, anything that wasn't G.
Yeah.
But even then, there were some things that were G that we weren't allowed to watch.
If it had any kind of magic or anything, it's like, no, this is of the devil.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's like the Smurfs, Papa Smurf did incantations. Care Bears were humanistic. You know, like there was always something absolutely ridiculous. But then, you know what I was allowed to watch? Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
That was OD sacrilegious stuff in that. What are we talking about? That's crazy. Look, I didn't see that movie until like kind of like 2014. I watched that for the first time. So I missed all the movies from that era, okay? But I saw that and I was like, oh, this is OD. Yeah, they was talking about they were talking about the like lost artifacts of Jesus and stuff. It was crazy. Seriously. The Ark of the Covenant. I was like, yo, this is wow. They've been weaving Jesus in it. No, but bro, so I mean, having that experience again, though, I think there's a beauty in it. Okay, like yes, it's obviously toxic. I think that environment is disgusting, and I would never want my children to experience that. But I think the beauty in it is that what it does is it gives you the ability to stand on your own 2 feet. Like I don't need the validation of other people like agreeing with me in order to believe what I believe. I can have a position that most people are going to immediately look at me and be like, "Oh, you're crazy." and feel completely comfortable. Like, no, I'm right. I know I'm right. And
Right.
so then I don't mind that. And I think that's what allows me to be somewhat centrist, right? Because it's like, I've had to learn. I think people being brought up in those kind of controlling environments, learning to eventually critically think, forces you to question the validity of anything. And so I think I can't accept a party wholesale, because if the same way that I had to eventually learn to reject these this
Absolutely.
stuff that was inculcated into me from these religious organizations, I have to learn now that, okay, then I'm not going to just accept anything anyone says. I have to be able to verify it. I have to be able to understand it myself.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what lands you where you are and me where I am. Like, even not that we're going to agree on everything, but at least it's going to be from our own personal basis. You know what I mean?
Right. It's not going to be because somebody regurgitated it.
Right.
And that's important. And it's hard to find nowadays.
100%. There's a guy, like one of the most intelligent people on the platform. He doesn't really do the platform, but like one of the most intelligent people I've interacted with. His name is Pons. And he told me that he noticed that almost every person that you can have really good conversations with like this, they're people who have like had to overcome like some sort of like their worldview changing like dramatically.
Right.
And then from that point on, then those people are going to be a lot more nuanced in their takes. They're going to end up, and like, since he said that, I've started looking at it. Like, even like, as much as I really genuinely am not a fan of Destiny, there's no doubt about it that his takes are generally significantly more nuanced than the average person. Like,
right.
And it's because he had an entire worldview that just completely shifted. He was like hyper conservative, hyper Republican. And then that like literally shifted once he started like actually delving into politics and understanding and all that stuff. And I think that's why he can be interesting to talk to. Not if you're trying to defend yourself because he's just dishonest, but I'm saying like just his takes are going to be more nuanced and varied.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even realize like how much political thoughts played a part in society just because my parents were both centrists. So it wasn't like, it just wasn't really discussed in the house because there were certain things that they did discuss, yes, but it wasn't like, oh, we were Democrat or oh, we're Republican. Like, I didn't even know those terms until I was like mid-teen.
Yeah.
You know, like
same.
So it was just like it was this is what we feel is right. This is what we feel is right. It wasn't like a oh, this guy's running, we have to vote for him because he's Republican, or oh, this guy's running because he's Democrat. Like, so I like, it was just, I don't know, it was awakening to me.
Yeah. So that means from the very beginning, though, you already had an approach of a non-commitment to one side because it wasn't like kind of pushed out. Because if you're a child and your parents are like hard body Republicans and Trump is the greatest, you're gonna you know what I'm saying, that's gonna be your values. So I think the fact that your parents are centrist, which makes them awesome as well, then that means that you're probably like from the very beginning you just knew like, okay, there wasn't a clear line for you to follow, so you had to figure it out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense, I guess, for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty. I don't know. I'm with that though. I don't want like Democrat kids or Republican kids. I want you know what I mean? I
want them to be able to make up their own minds and thoughts dependent on who the person is.
Right. And on the values that they develop. Hopefully they're going to be similar to mine, but if they deviate, hopefully they're still good values. But yeah, you got to figure life out for yourself. I just can't have other people thinking for me. That just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, no, I have issues.
Yeah.
I've always had issues with that. Well, especially when it couldn't be, if you can't explain to me why I should feel a certain way, and I've always felt that way, and it was way irritating as a kid because it's like nobody took you seriously as a kid. But it was like if you can't explain to me there's some reason why I should feel that way, it's very hard for me to feel that way. But I was easily manipulated by the religion thing because I was such an emotional kid.
It's so crazy. Oh my God. This is nuts, man. I'm just it's just crazy hearing your stuff parodied. Cause so the one thing that I don't question, right? Like the one thing that I like accept, where it's like I'm not debating this, is like the existence of God and the Bible itself, right? Like, those are the two things that I like completely commit to. And so, but as a kid, of course, I wanted to question everything. But the one thing that, because I was like indoctrinated with this cult, like I didn't even understand that this was a thing to question. It was just like, this is what life is. And everyone that's not part of this is wrong. So then for me, I hated like when someone didn't explain something to me. Like me and my brother Inside, we've talked about it like very much. Like I've said 100%, I will never ever use the phrase "because I said so" with my children. Never in a billion years.
Thank you.
It's one of the most disgusting things ever. Especially because it felt like they were constantly using it specifically when what they were saying didn't make sense, and they didn't want to have to explain it because then they knew that I was gonna be wait, hold up now, and they whatever. So that is something that I just can't deal with in any capacity. I don't have any tolerance for it.
Also, there was things that I always ran into that didn't make sense why they wouldn't explain it to you. Where it's just like it like they almost felt that children are way more stupid than they actually are. Like I remember growing up and realizing that the reason why you shouldn't do certain things is because you're gonna get fucking hurt. Like don't jump on the bed. Why? Because they say so. No, because you're gonna break your neck.
Right. Right.
Like that's what it should be. Like, because if you make one wrong move, there you go.
Yeah, 100%. They used to kill me because there was a bunch of things I remember when I was having this awakening experience, and I remember like going back to some of the people and saying, if you had explained this to me, I would have understood, because I was arguing, right? Because I'm very much a debater.
That was me too.
Had you actually taken the time to explain it to me, this would have made sense. You were right. But I didn't know, and you wouldn't even explain it. And so then all this time I'm fighting against this thing that was actually for my good, but I had no idea because you were being such a cucklord about it. So
because all you would say is because I say so. Well, that's not an answer.
It's not an answer because you've been wrong before, and I've noticed it. Freak out, bro. I hate it. Nah, it's crazy. Yeah, man. This is gonna be great. I can't wait when I do the panels again because I really, really do like for everyone's thoughts to come forward and for us just to have a meeting of the minds. And for those panels, most of the time I'm just a moderator. I'm a very hyper opinionated person, right? But for the panels, a lot of times I just want the ideas to be like had, and containing ideas. I want people to be on the other side and express why they feel the way they feel about it, and
be able to actually talk about it and not talk over each other.
Right, like before an abortion conversation. Listen. I totally understand that you feel like it's a woman's body and it's her choice. I get that 100%. But I also understand the other person who's just like, wait, I feel like this is a life, right? And it doesn't mean that we should just immediately demonize the people. We should be able to have a differing in opinions without it being just, oh, you're a demon who wants to control women's bodies, or you're just a monster that wants to abort fully born, full-term babies, right? Like we should be able to just get to the nuance of these conversations.
So you're saying you should be able to kill a baby after it's born? Like, no, who said that?
Right? Who's on that? What are we talking about? Right? But then that's where the conversations go. So then we never even have a conversation. Because to be honest with you, I don't expect you to change the other person's mind, because the impasse typically is gonna be like some person. It's like, no, life. The second you conceived, it's a life, and you can't do anything about it. And it's like, I don't know. We're going a little far here, right? Like, and so some of those people are like that, and you're not gonna find a middle ground there. But we should, with rational people, be able to discuss the middle, be able to discuss like where we're coming from, even if I'm not going to change your mind, to at least fully grasp where the disagreement is without me looking at you as a monster. Man, yeah, it's crazy on all of this stuff, bro. Like trans issues, I think that it just gets there's some stuff where it's like, okay, look, hold on now. Maybe some of these areas we're going too far. I think transitioning a 10-year-old, I don't know, like doing certain. That
almost like we should be. It's almost like we should be more, what's the word, central?
Yeah, for sure. for sure. I don't know. I think I'm with that. I've never called myself a centrist. I consider myself, I've used the word conservative progressive, but what it basically boils down to is, I'm going to be in the middle on some things. I'm clearly going to disagree with liberals on some stuff. As a very religious person, there's going to be disagreements. But then Republicans are psycho. Like both sides are psycho. So what am I going to do?
Well, it's like, especially during the whole Trump and Biden thing, I thought it was funny because they're like, oh, well, Trump's racist. So's Biden.
Right, bro. Listen, don't you speak my language.
They're both racist old white men. Like,
that's nah, bro. I'm saying
they're creepy around women.
Biden was creepy around kids, though. Can we talk about that, though? Because I feel
oh my god, that's way worse.
That was OD, right? You saw the way he was sniffing on them, bro. And I feel like, look, this is one of them things where it's like, yo, because again, because people are so anti-Trump that it's like, nah, we got to go with this. And it's
you
like,
have to, you can't say anything bad about Biden, or you're pro-Trump.
Bro, I feel like I got gaslit. Because it was
Yeah,
like
me
everyone
too.
was pretending like this wasn't a thing. And it's like, yo, had this been anyone else, we'd be saying this is psycho. This is crazy.
Mhm.
I saw the montages and I was like, yeah, no, y'all niggas is tripping. Y'all, this is OD. Biden, nah, that was OD. And listen, I despise Trump. I despise Trump with my being.
Yeah,
but
me
it's
too.
like, bro, we got to look at the racism of Biden. And it's like, legislatively, I cannot think of a single greater destructive thing towards my community, the black folks, than that crime bill, which he championed and said, I wrote. It's like, yo, how are we just ignoring all of this? How do we just move past? I don't know, man. It's crazy to me. So I don't know how you can just, like I said, you can't be with a party. You can't. If you I immediately lose a little bit of respect. Like I don't think you're fully thinking for yourself.
Yeah, I just don't get it, because it's like, how do you know that you're going to feel that way about every circumstance that comes into play for a Democratic Party or a Republican Party? Because it's like, there's plenty for me to be like, on either side, be like, you guys are all fucking nuts.
Right. What person can tell me that they fully agree with the Republicans on everything? Like, if you're telling me that, you're not thinking, bro. There's no way. Because politics covers such a wide gamut of issues, and our circumstances, being 100% real, are a lot of times what shape our worldview. It's not like, oh, we're just all these perfectly rational beings that everything that we're doing is based off of some ethos of logic. Like, that's not how we think. That's not how the world works.
Experiences, like, at least I hope
that.
not.
Of course not.
It terrifies me that that's how people are thinking. Like,
oh yeah,
that they're just 100% one way or 100% the other way, and if you aren't 100% for either or, you are the opposite of what it is. And it's
nonsense.
It's mind-boggling to me. And and people are so quick to be like, oh, well, you're clearly a Nazi if you wouldn't marry a transgender person. And it's like, wait, what?
What are we doing? Yeah, I got someone said it's transphobic if you decided you didn't want to marry a trans person. And I was like, that's
I thought that was preference.
Where we're going. That's what so it's crazy. Another thing that Pons pointed out to me, which was I've never forgotten it. He was talking about like different people in these different communities on Twitch, and he was saying that like a lot of times he was saying that people tend to like completely dismiss emotions almost to like an autistic degree, where it's like like, so when we're talking politics, it's like they believe in their heart of hearts that we're supposed to only think logic and so on and so forth, when in reality some of these positions are going to be like, there's going to be emotion involved.
Well, see, that's the issue that I have with, like, I know this is going to sound weird, but that's the issue like I have with like juries. Like people, they, there's at certain points that something will be added into evidence that will then be taken away from evidence because it's not admissible. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to erase that from my memory.
100%.
I literally just saw it.
Yep.
Like, you're not going to tell me that I didn't just see that.
Right.
And I can't add it into whether or not I believe that person's guilty or not guilty.
So
you might want to excuse me.
Right. No, 100%. Same thing when they're like, when the attorney says, oh, so you did do such and such, and they're like, strike that from the record. It's like, what does that mean? You think I didn't hear that? That didn't still
that doesn't work in my head.
It's doing work. It's doing work now. It's over.
It's there's some mathing here, and it's clicking, and like you can't really erase that once it's been done and said. Like, I don't understand how people are like, oh yeah, I'm totally fine with being able. Absolutely not. Unless you want me lying through my ass, there's 100%. No way I'm going to tell you with 100% honesty that I can be what's the word?
Fully objective.
Yeah, I can't be.
Yeah, no, it's nonsense. That's nonsense. I'm telling you, I've never done jury duty. I don't ever plan on doing jury duty. I think
they better hope they don't pick me for jury.
They can't. I couldn't get through it. When the judge starts doing the questioning thing, is like, I'm not that nigga, because for several reasons. Number one, my mother said something that was really poignant, because my mom has 2 master's degrees, and I don't know if it seems like, and this could be just nonsense, it seems like it's not randomly selected. It seems like they actually do look for educated people to be on juries. And maybe it's because educated people are more likely to register to vote, and you need to register to vote in order to be selected for a jury. Maybe that's the reason why. I don't know. But
or
in
maybe
any
they
case,
think that they think more logical than they do like emotional.
Right. I don't
more
know.
educated.
But that
Yeah,
just seems
who
to be the
knows?
case.
Yeah.
So my mother, when she got selected, and the judge, like, he was like almost insistent, because she was like, I don't want to do this. I want to like not be. And the judge was like, it's your American duty. And she was just like, yeah, no, I don't have faith in the system. Like, I don't think I should do it. I mean, I don't want to do it. And the judge was saying, and he was like, well, like, how do you not? What do you mean? This is the part of America. Da, 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 da. And she said, listen, I don't trust the evidence. Because the judge was saying, we're not asking you to like, judge. Like, we're asking you to just evaluate the evidence. And my mother said, I don't trust the evidence being presented to me, because I believe if a prosecutor got access to information that would prove their case wrong, that they wouldn't present that information. I don't believe
Yeah, I
that they
don't
would
think
do
that they would either.
Right. And so she was saying, so because of that, I don't feel comfortable making a judgment about another person knowing I don't have access to all of the information, or not knowing that I have access to all of the information. I don't have faith in the prosecutor enough to trust this evidence. I can't. And so, but finally, he was trying his best, and then finally he just gave up, like, okay, fine. And so he excused her. And I think that point right there is why I was like, I don't think I can ever do it, because we know, like, Kamala Harris, like when she was like hiding all that information, talking about the she was blocking evidence that would like exonerate a person,
Right.
like DNA evidence, and it's like, yo, they do that though. We know that they do that. Like, so how am I
We
supposed to
know
be
for
fair?
sure.
I
There are
don't know.
people in prison that are completely innocent, and
100%.
they were put there by people who were out to put somebody away, and they didn't care who.
Yep. Because of numbers' sake.
Yeah.
But then how do you run like that? How do you be that person and then decide, oh no, I'm gonna run as like the pro-black person that was like doing everything I could when you was locking niggas away for smoking marijuana when you were the DA of California? I don't get how that's a thing, bro.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Oh my God, it's so nuts. Yeah, that's gross. Hey, look, this has been a completely fantastic conversation. I'm thankful that you're willing to hear it. I genuinely like the way you think so far. It sounds great. Like, I think we have a lot of similarities. Obviously, we're gonna have a bunch of disagreements and
of course,
whatever. But
yeah.
I just like the
this was
foundation
amazing.
for how you think, for sure.
Yeah, this was a good conversation. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. So do you what do you go by again?
I usually go by Ginger. It's Ginger Ramoth, but everybody just calls me Ginger.
Ginger. Okay, that's what I'm gonna call you.
Oh.
I appreciate you.
Heck yeah.
Can you DM me like your social, because I'm gonna upload this conversation to YouTube, by the way.
Okay.
And I need like your socials and stuff so I can like include that in there so other people will be able to find you. And if you have some panels where you want someone with a decent perspective, I mean, I'll try my best. And I would very, very much appreciate if you would come on my panel in the future.
Heck yeah, count me in.
Okay.
Yeah.
This will be
Send
awesome.
me a DM and we'll be good. And yeah, for sure. I will let you know my socials and stuff.
Okay.
And thank you again for all this. This was a great conversation.
100%. Great, gratifying conversation. You take care.
All right. You have a great night. Bye.
Oh, that was OD. When do you get conversations like that on Twitch?
This